Things Geeky. Broadcasting all the way from the TLC studios in Sydney, Australia. My name is Chef Kim and FIFA Las Vegas.
My name is Kelvin Lee and today's episode is all about immersion.
Well, I'm immersed already.
Yeah?
Like I can't get out of it.
No, maybe.
What's going on?
Lots.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to cover all things virtual reality today, in particular Facebook's Oculus event that happened last week.
And everything I'm reading about it so far is all they can say is about immersion. I was so immersed. It was so immersive. Immersion. There's literally one article that I think mentioned it like 8 times.
Yes, I think everyone's kind of excited. I think the lucky few, the journalists out there, have been able to try the wireless, the Rift.
Yeah,
basically.
the Rift.
So, they're all sort of saying it's the future sort of thing. Love to try it out, but we may have to wait until next year probably.
Yeah, no, but
beyond.
All signs point to, the firmware upgrades making everything cheaper and all, but we'll cover that in detail. Yeah. How's your couple of days been?
Well, as my intro suggested, it's all been about FIFA. Yeah.
So we should talk about that. Yeah, we should talk about that a little bit. So you and I are both playing FIFA 17. You've got it on your Xbox One. I have it on PC. It's a lot deeper than your typical football game.
I actually didn't play 16, so I can't compare it to that. But yeah, compared to 15, I've got to say it's more, responsive. Like it feels real.
Yeah. I think that's the argument between the other football franchise, which is Pro Evolution Soccer.
Right.
So every year, for those who don't know, there's 2 main football games that come out: PES, which is Pro Evolution Soccer, and FIFA. So Pro Evolution is more arcade-like, whereas FIFA is more real. So I've definitely struggled this season. I played FIFA 15.
Yeah,
16.
but you're playing online mostly, yeah? I've been playing the computer, or I've been, using the manager mode. Yes, I'm loving the fact that there's like 3, clear ways of playing it.
Yeah.
The journey is a new introduction, which is you're following a 17-year-old English upstart. He's he sort of missed out on the talent scouts originally, but he's sort of coming out of the academy.
Yep.
And he gets picked up by a club, and then he's got a best mate that he kind of turns on him.
Yeah, I know.
I won't spoil it too much, but I really enjoyed that. I haven't finished that yet. Have you?
No, not yet. It's gonna be a while. It's a long career.
Yeah,
Alex Hunter.
It's based on how many Twitter followers you get. That sort of stuff.
It's too real. Can't handle it.
Yes. So, what have you been up to then?
Not much. A lot of FIFA 17 for sure. But no, besides that, nothing really tech involved or pop culture. I did watch Girl on a Train.
Oh,
yeah, that's the one with Emily Blunt.
Movie.
Yeah, movie.
Oh, right.
30-second review. Apparently, compared to the book, it doesn't even compare. Really slow-paced movie. Quite predictable.
Okay.
Universally slammed by the critics.
What sort of story is it?
It's sort of a psychological thriller type movie. Loved Emily Blunt. I think she's an amazing actress, but the pace was wrong.
Stick to sci-fi, maybe?
Stick to sci-fi, I should. It was more... Yeah, it's a good B-grade movie. But no, I agree with the critics. It wasn't great. Yeah. Pace was too slow and too predictable as well.
Yeah, just a little bit of feedback over the last week or so. Like I think people are really enjoying the new format.
Yeah, I like it.
The big features. Yeah, we're both enjoying it. So we've had a bit of a trilogy, haven't we?
I know.
Of new phones that have come out or about to come out. So hopefully Neil and Chris, friends of the show, hopefully you know which phones to get after that. You probably had it probably decided already.
Yeah.
And also Loretto, hope you get that OnePlus 3 very soon.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see her jump from an iPhone to a OnePlus 3. See what she has to say about it.
All right.
Yep. And today's feature, we're going to look at all the announcements from Facebook's Oculus Connect 3 event. What is the immediate future of virtual reality? What's the 5-year plan for Oculus? And we're going to talk about some of the games and apps you can try right now.
Oh, take a look at your own avatar.
Whoa, why did you make me look like a young version of Justin Timberlake?
All right, so if you didn't get who that was Mark Zuckerberg doing the keynote, and they actually did a really, really cool live demo.
Yeah.
It was almost in that Steve Jobs kind of announcement, so I don't think you've seen the full thing.
No, I saw
definitely
the
worth seeing. Yeah, so I think the way we're going to do it today is I'll talk about some of the things that were said in the keynote. It went for 2 hours, so there's a lot to cover. I might skip through some of it if it gets a bit too technical. And you've got later in the show, you might sort of talk about some of the games that you can get.
Yeah, I think it's quite good. So when did this happen? It was about
late last week.
Yeah, last week. So one of the good things about covering an event a little bit later is you get to see all the reviews and what people think of it coming a bit after. So we're going to look at all of that. Plus, a lot of it was really well covered. You know what I mean? All the podcasts did it, and saw a few good videos on YouTube as well. So we've definitely got a good feel in terms of what the current state is for VR.
All right. So one key person that was missing from the whole event was Palmer Luckey, and we're going to talk about him as well. So the co-founder is Brendan Iribe. I think that's the way you pronounce it. He actually, started the keynote. He's pretty much runs the show, I think, at Oculus. But of course, Facebook is the actual owner of Oculus. So, Mark Zuckerberg came out and did his thing. Now, his talk was very, very punchy. I thought, he said things like, this is the next major computing platform. Although he's talked about augmented reality as well in the past, but I think VR is still where they're heading towards. So he's fairly comfortable with the way the hardware is going, but I think he thinks that the next phase in VR is building a great software experience. So, that's where Facebook can really help, I think, and all its engineers. He talked about, the magic is when, you truly feel like you're somewhere else. You've been transported, and that immersion, I suppose.
Yeah.
And also VR is the perfect place to put people first. So I didn't really think about it like this before, but, when we sort of think about our devices like phones and iPads, TVs, Xboxes, you think about the platform first, right? You open up the app, open up the home screen, and then you sort of decide which apps to use, like from a personal thing. But in VR, because you can exist in that space together, and that's how you start. So, you meet with the people first, and together you decide what to do together.
Yeah.
So I think this is a really cool way of thinking about it, and I think this is, from Facebook's point of view, this is perfect, right?
No, it definitely is. I mean, Facebook is all about people when you think about it. At its core, it's trying to develop new features in Facebook for people, and it kind of makes sense that VR seems like that natural progression for them.
That's right, yeah. So he really, really stressed that point. VR is for people first. So that's the number one point. Now, I'll probably talk about the demo next. Actually, before we do that, the funding.
So let's sort of go back in time a little bit.
Okay.
Facebook bought Oculus VR for $2 billion, which is a huge amount back in 2014.
Two Instagrams.
A bargain. Yeah. But it didn't stop there. It also is investing about $250 million into VR to fund like apps and games, and another $250 million for anything that comes up in the future. That funding also includes $50 million for mobile VR content, as well as $10 million each for educational programs and apps that promote diversity. Not even quite sure what that means. How do apps...
there was a lady that came out later in the keynote to talk about that, actually.
Okay.
So I guess, if you think about all the engineers that are working on these things right now, they're usually white, middle age, or maybe 20, 30 something males. Yeah. So just from that point of view, like what they produce is not going to reflect reality. So they want a diverse way of thinking, backgrounds and things like that.
Yeah, you might reach out to more people. That's really cool. Yep. All in all, analysts predict that VR could generate as much as $50 billion in revenue by 2020. So whatever Facebook's doing, they hit gold here. They hit gold.
Yes, I think where Facebook sort of succeeds is the sort of the platform level stuff. Vive has the Steam store, I suppose, VR store, is that what they call it? What Google has, Daydream?
Yeah, Daydream VR.
Daydream VR, and I think it must have its own sort of store, right?
Yep. Sony have their own store. Microsoft have the Xbox. Everyone's got some sort of store. Yeah,
so fragmentation is happening right now, and it's very real because like you have to decide right now, and these things aren't cheap.
No.
You got to decide which platform to go to. So for the moment, the Oculus Rift system doesn't come with the controllers, but it will very soon. Like in December, I think is the time frame that they said. But let's just talk about the demo that they did. So this I'm going to sort of call this the social VR demo, and I think this is how they coined it as well. It was very, very impressive. I got to say. So Mark actually put the headset on stage, so the audience can see themselves. So it's yes. How do I explain this? So I guess what Mark was seeing was on the screen.
Yeah.
So obviously he's facing the audience, so you can see the audience. So I suppose there was a camera on the headset as well.
Yeah.
So in the VR world, overlaid into that is were two of the workers that work at Facebook or Oculus. I guess the head of the product, and they did a couple of demos. They sort of were able to transport themselves in underwater. I think that was the first one. They also went to the Facebook offices. And
why would you go to work in VR?
The impressive thing about that was it was all in real time. So someone had a 360 live camera there.
Yeah.
So you were there
virtually
when you went there.
Yeah.
The other place that they went to was like Zuckerberg's house.
Hey, personal.
Yeah, so his living room where, you know that fluffy dog, white dog beast. So there was a camera there. And then the cool thing was that he dialed his wife Priscilla into the conversation.
Yeah.
So this was, so she wasn't in VR, but she was just, I guess, FaceTiming
like
him.
a video call.
Yeah, so imagine for her, it's like just a phone call,
Yeah.
like a FaceTime.
Yeah.
But for everyone else, you're in VR, but it's all sort of seamlessly kind of worked.
Yeah.
So just like, other sort of chat services would work, when someone's talking, their name or the avatar would light up. They did this fencing demo where one of the guys
really cool.
sort of drew like apparently Zuckerberg used to fence when he was in college.
Oh, great.
So he had a fencing, like a virtual fencing sword.
Yeah.
Someone drew something and then he kind of like held it and started fighting with him.
So there is some sort of physical manifestation in virtual where you could draw something, you could throw stars at someone or something.
That's right, yeah.
That's crazy.
What else?
They played a game of chess quite poorly. That's the thing, right? That's when it gets a bit difficult, when the board is so small and yet you're in this environment where you're trying to precisely place a chess piece.
That's
in
right.
that
So it's
little
all
square.
to do with the tracking, I suppose. And I'll talk about this a bit later when they sort of start talking about inside-out tracking, where I think this will help with that problem. Because at the moment it's all outside in, so you're being tracked, your body movement is being tracked from the outside world.
Got you.
To display in the inside world, but they want to do that in reverse, which I don't quite get just yet, but that's what they're trying to solve. It's that positional, like on the chessboard, the virtual chessboard, they couldn't actually put the queen character precisely into that spot. So she just said, it's queen to middle of the board.
She also played a video, didn't she? She pulled up like a little video player.
So this is all, like a POC, a proof of concept, just to show what's available. So I guess she opened up this screen, which kind of looks like a curved screen, and she was able to, play the video, zoom in, or make the actual video screen go bigger instead of zooming in the screen, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but that would be great. All your friends could watch a movie together with you.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, so I think, this is going to be, like, if everything works, and, I think the roadmap is that this is what they're trying to do. I think especially in the workplace, when you're in different cities, like, you can totally work together.
Yeah.
I think the time zone is only sort of the factor there. Now, after that, Mark talked about computer vision software and the inside-out tracking. So the wireless prototype, which is the thing that we mentioned just earlier in terms of all the journalists trying it out. So this is the way Mark kind of framed it. At the moment, there's two sort of key categories for VR. The first being sort of like a simpler mobile version, or mobile, as they say in America. Things like the Samsung, the Gear VR or the Daydream VR that we talked about last week. And there's also the PC VR, which is, the Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, where you have to be like sort of tethered and you get that really high quality, streaming of video. Now, what Mark is saying that what they want to do is like hit that sweet spot in the middle. So, the experience has to be real enough. So you need that sort of high-end computing processing, but also be untethered. So just like the mobile VR.
Yeah, like some sort of wireless connection somehow that's going to be fast enough.
Yeah, so I think they're looking at, years into the future before that can happen, because the way the technology is going, like there's nothing available to stream data wirelessly that fast in that high quality.
And I'm confident we'll get there. If you look at Intel's NUC computing, which is like a little computer the size of your hard drive, and those things are getting crazy powerful now. Yeah. So hopefully it's the graphics, I think, card that's going to be the problem here, because you can't build a graphics card that's small yet.
That's right, yeah. And, like there are other companies like Magic Leap and HoloLens sort of trying to solve for that. But obviously it's not total virtual reality. This is just overlaying certain parts onto actual worlds. So they don't need that sort of processing power. There's a CNET article by, who's the... Sean Hollister. Okay, that's who I was trying to find. You know what? These articles, the author's name is so hard to find, don't you think? They don't.
There's no common place.
Anyway, he tried it out and he thought it tasted like freedom.
Freedom. What does freedom taste like? Chicken.
Like Oculus Rift Wireless. And I think there was a Mashable one that was quite similar as well, right, Kelvin?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is probably 2-3 years into the future, but this is where they're heading, and they're being very open about that as well. Now this inside out tracking, that's sort of the big thing. So I don't quite get how it's going to work. Apart from your eye movements, how would you be able to track from the inside? That's I don't quite get that part.
I think a lot will have to do with the sensors that are placed around the room, somehow determining what that spatial ratio is. Maybe like 1 centimeter in your house could be half a centimeter in virtual reality, and do some sort of, which is why I think your computer has to be pretty crazy powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the struggle for Oculus from day one, is buying a computer actually good enough.
Yeah, and I think as the VR experience becomes more social, I think it makes sense to have cameras. You wouldn't necessarily be in a VR world when you're in the same room with the other person.
No.
But I think the way it's going, like you're going to have cameras on there as well, so you can sort of track the outside world as you're walking around. I think that's part of it as well, what they mean by inside out tracking. But yeah, I think I want to sort of follow this a bit more, and maybe in a upcoming episode we can go through those.
Yeah.
The other big thing is all the platforms that they're building, or the framework to, so this is the start of a new channel, a new computing platform, I suppose.
No, and I think that is sort of step one. Yeah. Right? Because the easiest concept for your brain to grasp is, I want to serve the web. And when you think about, we look at web data all the time. There's desktop, there's mobile, and there's tablet, and now there's going to be VR.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how there's a whole different way of understanding the web. And didn't I also see the demo where they were trying different things just in the browser, like for the browser to do something? So while on your computer you could see the browser, in this VR world you can see the back of the browser, you know what I mean? It totally becomes a different experience. So the web will have to change now. And when you think about the construct of the web, it's so big, it's so vast. And now everyone has to go through it and redevelop their... Yeah. It's not even called webs. What would you call it? It's not even a website anymore, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So they're going to call it VR web, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like when you think of the web, do you sort of think of it in a 2D-dimensional way?
Yeah, it is, because it's right in front of you, right? It's up, down, left, right. There is no fourth and
so I think we're going to have to sort of start thinking that way, right?
Yeah, because I can just imagine, like, what is the one thing you do on the web the most? Emails, right? So I can imagine, let's say I sit back, put on my VR goggles, and I have emails flying all over around me. I can go delete with like a stick or something.
Yeah.
And like with a pair of tongs or something, keep it in this. But isn't that almost thinking about it the wrong way? You're kind of using like medieval sort of, what's that word that Apple used to use to make everything look like it actually? No, it's almost like, how the old Note,
like Microsoft
used to look like skeuomorphic.
Oh, right,
yeah. Like, do we take that skeuomorphic approach?
Well, maybe that's coming back.
Maybe that is coming back.
Yeah.
Like, will I get the Microsoft Clippy to come into VR? I think he's going to make a comeback, by the way. It's my prediction. They're going to go, hey, can I help you sort your email?
That's Cortana, man.
Yeah, that's Cortana. I prefer Clippy, though. But yeah, it's going to be so interesting to see.
Hey there, looks like you're trying to send an email.
Yeah, like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to. I think for me, I want to see VR tackle today's problems. You know what I mean? Like chat. And will texting be different? Will emails be different? You mean we already know that watching YouTube is going to be different? Because instead of me sending you a link, I can go, hey Jeff, come into this virtual room and check out this video I just found.
I think they're being smart about it as well, because like we're not going to be in a VR world 24/7, right? It's going to be like maybe an hour at a time. So we need to be able to somehow, maybe we're using our iPads or our phones. Go from that. How do we send a link to our VR headsets? I don't know. I think that's the sort of problem that they're trying to tackle right now.
Yeah. And I think people should continue to do, I'm going to call it 2D things in 3D. For example, you and I and Paul, we're playing Civilization multiplayer right now. We're all staring at the same game, but we can't see each other. Right? So can you imagine that universe where we're all actually sitting in the same room and we're just throwing things at each other, and it's like a game within a game.
So what it's like we're in a virtual, what do you call it, like a LAN party.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah. So
I get what you mean,
yeah. So we're playing two games at the same time almost. Like, while we're waiting for the game to load, I can throw a shoe at you that I just drew out of thin air or something like that. I just think like that is going to be a huge component of VR, because it is a game within a game.
Yeah.
So which is going to be really interesting.
So that's a good segue to the next part of the keynote, which was Oculus avatars. So I guess you need a sense of identity in a VR world, or Oculus world, or Facebook world. So they've built a system of IDs, or your avatars. So it's a bit similar to what they showed in the Toy Box demo last year. Remember that?
Yeah,
so
I do remember
sort
that.
of like blue silhouette of a figure, but in 3D. So it's sort of building on that. As you build your character, the way you sort of choose your avatar, and I guess you can change it as many times as you want to show your friends, your personality and stuff like that. So you can have like mohawks or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're sort of like, the experience is like you're looking at yourself in a mirror. So you're in your headset, you're in this sort of dressing room kind of experience, and you can just like swipe. I'm just doing the hand movements here. Swipe and choose your type of head, your the way your chin looks, or whatever, whether you're wearing sunnies or not, and then you can choose like a color. So it's not like a realistic sort of avatar, but kind of enough for your friends to be able to recognize you.
And we kind of know that already works with Nintendo Miitomo having a short-lived experience. So we know it works. We know that everybody wants to be someone else on the internet. It's just who we are as humans.
And at the moment, there's over 1 billion different permutations of that. So no two avatars will be alike, in theory. So where do the avatars hang out? So they've built something called Oculus Rooms. So this is almost like the lobby of the VR experience. So I don't know, I guess how I sort of foresee this is that you put them on, and then you come to this sort of room that you've sort of set to, so you can randomly meet friends, or you can sort of arrange to meet friends in the room. And
private
then
rooms,
Private, ooh, hello. Okay.
Password only. Password only.
Yes, actually, there's lots of different applications of this. Anyway, so I guess it's kind of like the Steam. I think they have something like that already.
They do. So I think every game you join. So for example, when you log into like a game like Dota or anything like that, you automatically get put in the Sydney room. So it could be something similar. Like if you join VR, you'd be put in the Sydney room to hang out with Sydney siders.
So what they showed was an actual room with like a circular lounge, and people are just like hanging out. There's like a big screen in front of you, so you can choose to watch a Netflix video together, even though you're in different parts of the world. So I think I can kind of see that happening. Like it just feels a bit too, like when you think about it like that, it feels awkward, or I don't know, like kind of, I don't know, is that something you would really do? But I think it's more and more, I think this is going to happen.
Yeah, because it mimics real life, right? Everyone meets at one location and goes hang out. So it's kind of...
So basically no one's going to leave their house.
No, you're right. No one's going to leave their room.
Yeah. So to me, like it makes sense if you're in a faraway place, but if you're in the same city, would it be as appealing? I'm not sure. Okay, let's just move on. So we covered avatars and rooms. Okay, so some of the hardware that's going on. Now, this was a quite geeky part of the keynote, and Brendan Iro sort of came out to talk about this. Now, the engineering advances allows for these high-end VRs to work with cheaper sort of PCs. So I think you can get it for 500 now, but I think on average 700. Even last year was like 1,000 was a minimum spec.
Yeah.
So it's getting lower.
I'm looking at the spec sheet, and just a heads up, I'm going to go full geeky here.
Sure.
So you're going to get you can start off with the graphics processor of the NVIDIA 960, which is last generation's video card series, because now we're at the 1060.
Yep.
And they're really cheap now. You can probably get them for like $150. So that's 150 there. You can start off with an Intel i3 processor, which is the lowest of the Intel processors current generation. You can also go for an AMD, which is quite shocking to see up there because at the moment Intel is just walking all over AMD. So that processor, let's just say another 100. You only need 8 gigs of RAM, which is also quite surprising. So yeah, all in up, I say in Sydney, that plus the motherboard, you can probably start something up $700, $750. And build a pretty decent unit to run this, if you're going to run minimum specs. But I'm guessing that's going to still get you into a bit of shuddering when you start playing games and stuff. So all in all, I would say you should still spend at least $1,000 if you really want to be in that.
So I think maybe if you wait 12 months or so, that's going to come down dramatically, I feel like. Yeah. So some of the software stuff that's helping to drive this the drop in the pricing is they're calling it asynchronous time warp. Doesn't that sound fascinating? So for VR to work properly, for you to be quite comfortable with it, it has to be running at 90 frames per second. So that's sort of the baseline, I suppose. So what they've done is this time warp, like every now and then it just there's glitches, almost like in the Matrix. Yeah. So even like it's running fine for 89 frames in that second, but if that one frame is out of place or there's some sort of glitch, you're just going to get this very jarring experience, right? So to get around that, if it sort of picks up on the glitch, what it does is I think physically it looks at the frame before and it almost sort of covers it up in real time. So that's what the asynchronous time warp is. And this is what's allowing the hardware specs to come down. Yeah.
And 90 frames per second is actually quite high. Your typical monitor is only 60 frames a second.
Yeah.
A very advanced gaming monitor can go up to 144 hertz, which lets you pump out to 144 frames a second, but that requires a lot of computational
And that's
power.
just a screen. We're talking about a full 360 field of view, right?
Exactly.
Well,
and
it's
you're
not
moving.
full, but it's getting better. Yeah, so apparently by doing this, like before, glitches were happening 11% of the time.
Really?
So which was quite bad, but now with this technology, it's down to 0.2%.
Wow.
And now even further than that, the next breakthrough is called asynchronous space warp. And this apparently fixes the positional juddering.
Oh.
So it's not just the frame that you see, but I guess like
the
objects
movement
in the physical 3D space. Yeah.
So that happens in monitors right now. So if you're playing really fast first-person shooter games, it's called ghosting.
Okay.
So you see, as you move really fast, you see like the image where it used to be and where it went to.
Right.
There's a bit of a sort of like a blur. So it's called ghosting, and a higher frame would obviously help with that because your eyeballs can't track more than something like 75 or something like that.
Yeah.
This is a lot of engineering involved.
Yeah.
And
this is what Facebook is doing, so this is very, very impressive.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty obvious it was engineers who did it. I mean, who would call anything a time warp and a space warp?
All right, so should we move on to Palmer Luckey?
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know who Palmer Luckey is, he is probably the founder of Oculus.
Yeah, he did it by himself in his bedroom.
In his bedroom, yeah.
When he was like 19.
Yeah. And he wasn't there. Why was that? Well, some are saying, in particular TechCrunch, that there is a backlash against him. So there was news recently that reported Luckey donated $10,000 to an association known as Nimble America. They are a pro-Trump, non-for-profit, dedicated to bashing Hillary Clinton with offensive memes. So this is called shitposting. Mind my language. Personally, it's not so much that he's pro-Trump. It's the fact that he supported a group that does shitposting. I mean, obviously, if you directly donated money to Trump's campaign, hey, I think that's cool. You know what I mean? Sure, most of Silicon Valley would be, supporting Hillary Clinton in that sense. And he sort of went against that stream, so that was bad enough. But he was supporting Donald Trump. But it's the way and the way he did it and how he was supporting this group, which is all about shitposting.
With monetary support, yeah.
So he typically is at these events, you know what I mean? He would typically, dispense high-level thoughts on VR. When he did it, like you said, when he was 18, 19, even if he doesn't appear at the keynote, he is appearing in videos, like the one in 2014. And he didn't make a single appearance, and that was Facebook's way of managing the PR.
Yeah. Remember last year he was like throwing stuff
Yeah,
onto
he
the
was
stage.
throwing the Minecraft toys at people.
Yeah.
And, and he was the kind of CEO that people looked up to. Like, he still maintained his core sort of personality because he's kind of odd. You know what I mean? He's still obviously very young.
He's obviously a genius, but I think he's got to start wearing the big boy pants.
Yeah, so things are not looking good for him. Oculus partners have all threatened to withdraw from the platform. So you've got people like Tomorrow Today Labs, Scruda Games, and Super Hypercube. Developers Kokoromi and Polytron all saying that they will now withhold their apps from Oculus as long as Lucky is employed there. But Facebook and Oculus have both declined to punish or demote Lucky. I've attached a story from the Daily Beast, which is the original story that kind of made his day really bad. So there are tweets there are emails between the journalist and Pamalaki confirming that he is indeed the anonymous sort of author on Reddit, sort of spruiking about how he's going to donate all this money. So it hasn't been great for him. Not only did he just donate the money, but he did a lot of sort of shit talking on Reddit and all these forums.
So has he publicly come out to say why, or is he just being a dick? Or
so he came up with, obviously on Facebook.com, he's apologized for the situation. The way he explained it was that he was just
shit stirring.
He was like, he wanted to help this non-for-profit. He thought they had good billboards, or it wasn't really much of an apology, more than trying to dig himself out of something.
Sure.
So he kept talking about their billboards. He wanted to support their cause, but if you dig deeper into it, especially the Daily Beast story, it wasn't great.
Yeah, and if you know about the way Zuckerberg treated a former co-founder of his after doing something not so great, then I guess you can see why this is happening.
So let's have a quick look at a good Verge story just to help summarize it all a little bit. Looking at the best apps and games so far on the Oculus Rift, and the first one is something called Superhot. It debuted on the Oculus Rift back in 2014. It's sort of like a first-person shooter game, and it's highly stylized. So it's not like your typical real person type thing. It's very old school VR. It's almost like I want to describe it as 8-bit VR. So
it's like Tron, maybe.
Yeah, like Tron. No, that's really good. So now with the controllers and everything, it's going to make it a lot better. So it's a very fun sort of a very VR type game as we remembered it from the 80s and all that, where you break up into little cubes and stuff. So that looks really good. The other one is Robo Recall.
Yeah, I heard about this one.
Looks amazing.
Yeah.
Robo Recall is from the
Epic Games.
Yeah. Epic Games does Mafia, I think, and they also do Gears of War, if I'm not wrong.
You're probably right there, yeah.
Yeah, I could be wrong. So it just looks amazing. Like, it is probably the most realistic game we've seen so far.
So last year they did a POC for the Connect event last year, and they demoed Bullet Train. So I think we did talk about that, but it was this sort of first person shooter thing, and the way you sort of like moved around was like you transport yourself. So they've sort of built upon that. So I think this is based on the Bullet Train engine as well.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the Oculus Touch system in a second, because there are a couple of reviews on that. But because Oculus only allows 2 cameras, it's not as immersive as HTC's Vive that tracks your movement. So the way they've tackled this problem is teleportation.
Yeah.
So you can teleport around the map and take out some robots.
Which brings us to Lone Echo.
Yeah.
So this is the game I've been reading about, and I saw a few demos, and I think the team at Tested YouTube channel, like they've got a really great account of this. So Lone Echo is like you're sort of stationed, I think outside Saturn from memory, and the way you move around is not teleportation, but you actually use your hands to sort of grab onto things, either pull yourself or push yourself. Almost like you're in, the ISS in zero gravity and you sort of float around. So you're almost like walking with your hands. So this is like, I think, because, we have no feet tracking.
No legs. I have no legs.
There's no legs in VR. So this is kind of like genius, I think.
Yeah. No, it looks great as well. And the concept you were telling me about, it just adds that sense of desperation. Because if you miss that one bar, you'd be floating in space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a great concept.
And I think when you are in space, you got these little jet packs on your hands to control the movement as well.
That's way cool.
So I think, you really be immersed in that world and feel like you're floating, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one nauseous game.
Could you play this sitting down though? Not sure.
What, you want to be hung from the ceiling?
Yes.
That'd be good. Like, just hang yourself using yoga ropes or something.
No, I still want to do VR while you're lying in bed.
Yeah.
So like,
Dude, that is the start of the end.
Horizontal gaming.
That's the start of the end.
Yeah.
And no VR platform should be without some sort of horror survival game.
Ooh, nice.
And that's what Killing Floor Incursion is going to be about. So Killing Floor is not new to a lot of gamers. It's a zombie / survival horror game. And what better way to scare the hell out of you than doing the same concept in VR? So I'm already seeing just in this little screenshot here is your left hand can be a gun and your right hand's going to be a knife. So you're going to be shooting and stabbing a lot. And so far it looks pretty good.
Yes.
And the last one is something quite interesting. It's called Quill. So you and I tried the HTV Vive painting app Tilt Brush, and we were so impressed by it. I'm guessing this is just going to be better or, at least on par with that. So it's called Quill. And what more can we say? It's a painting app in a 3D environment. And it looks pretty good. It looks pretty smick.
Yeah, so they did do a demo. So if you're willing to go through the 2 hours long keynote, then you can have a look at that. Also, the Verge article has a little clip, so worth checking out. So, we're running out of time a little bit. I don't know if you want to go through some of the other... Actually, we should definitely talk about the touch controllers.
Yeah, so really quickly, what did I learn? You can't control all 5 fingers. You can only control 3. Yep. That's your thumb, your index, and some sort of mash of the other 3 fingers.
Oh, yeah?
And what I didn't realize is they give you, when people are trying these things or at the Oculus 3 event, they had to stand on the 4-foot sort of square mat, just not to sort of go further than that. And that's a problem with these games. When you have cameras, you can only move so far.
Yeah.
So we spoke about teleportation, so that's going to help a little bit. The other thing I didn't realize is you actually have to grip these things quite hard because it is touch. The moment you loosen your grip, you actually lose control.
Oh, okay.
So it actually is pressure sensitive.
Oh, I see.
Hence why they call it a touch control.
Yeah.
So you have to grip. The other one they said as well, we just mentioned earlier, they had no legs. So some of the games actually have floating holsters for your guns.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird where you look down, you see your holsters, but you got no legs.
It's funny because the avatars is just the head with a little bit of your neck plus your hands. That's it. You got no other part of your body. Yeah.
The other thing that they still haven't really figured out is the way you aim and how accurate that should be. So there are some games that had no aiming sort of help. So you're just frantically shooting anyway. There are some games that do it so much it kind of takes the fun out of it.
Oh, I see.
So you can close your eyes basically and you still hit something.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a balance.
And if you're watching that person playing VR, that's going to look hilarious.
Yeah, just like, shooting around everything. What else? Grabbing things is really easy, apparently. So you mentioned that with the space game that we just spoke about. So it's easy to grab stuff. And this article from Tom's Hardware, his wrists just start to hurt.
Yeah.
Because you're just moving around so much. And
I guess it's no different to like playing Xbox, right?
No.
So if you're playing that for hours and hours, then that's going to happen.
So the other one they spoke about is the lack of lag. Everyone's been really impressed by how it syncs up to the rest of the system and how there's no lag. And that's it about the touch controllers.
Sure. Now I had a big section on Michael Abrash, who's the chief scientist at Oculus. He had I think probably like a 30-minute spiel on what the future is, or the immediate future, or the 5 years. So yeah, maybe I'll touch on that another time. But I think the number one thing I sort of got out of that was a new term for what he wants to do, which is, instead of mixed reality, he wants to call it augmented VR.
Stop it.
Yeah.
What about mixed augmented
Well,
VR?
his like ultimate vision for this is you don't wear anything, and you just step into a room. So like the holodeck.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, if you think about it, you're augmenting reality. I don't. Yeah.
You don't plug in or anything. Your room becomes the
Yeah.
virtual reality, and somehow there are treadmills so you don't run into the wall.
Kinda, yes. Yes.
No,
So, and if you can track from the inside what you see on the outside, so say there's a virtual chair
Yeah.
in the VR world, but it's an actual chair as well, then you can just like sit down on it, sort of thing.
Got you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting concept, but the amount of technology needed to get there is going to be at least 20, 30 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, he worked on the original, I think, Windows NT, so he's got an engineering background, so he's actually been able to predict up until today, 5 years ago. So he's got some sway there, I think. Like, rather than being able to display what are we displaying right now? 1080p, I think, in the VR world. Like, it's going to be 4K times 4K.
Yep.
All around you. And there's a nice chart saying, at the moment the field of view is, 90 degrees?
Yeah.
He thinks in 5 years' time it'll be more like 140, is it?
No, 220
Oh,
to
220.
320.
Yeah, so that's, that's sort of the improvements we're going to see in 5 years' time.
Which is better than what I'm currently looking at, because I can't see the back of my head.
Yeah.
So...
Oh, the other cool thing was
Yeah.
the foveated rendering.
What?
So basically, to save on the computing power, basically the way the physical eye works is that when you're looking at something, you only sort of concentrate on that
one
thing.
thing.
You're focusing on that thing. Everything else is kind of blurred out.
Yeah.
You can check it out right now, right?
Yeah, like bokeh effect.
That's right. So if we can bring that into VR as well, it's going to save on all that rendering.
So it's like that field of vision gets 90 frames or something, and everything else drops to 45.
That's right, yeah. So that's fascinating. So he talked about some of the eye tracking that needs to happen. At the moment, you can sort of be... You can do it at a certain level, but it's not very accurate at all. So you have to get like millimeter accurate.
Wow.
On that note...
Yeah, we're done. Yeah. So last week was all about Google, their phones, and AI. This episode is all about virtual reality. What do you want to see us cover? Tell us more on Twitter @TheLazyCouch, or email us at thelazycouchpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on the usual social networks like Facebook and Instagram by searching for The Lazy Couch Podcast. But if all that confuses you, come to the website, thelazycouch.com, subscribe to the newsletter. If you're listening on iTunes or things we've never heard of that allow you to rate us anyway, just rate us 5 stars. Kelv out.
Jeff out.
One day, years from now, you'll fire up your original Rift, just for old time's sake, and it'll bring back great memories. But you'll wonder where your hands are. You'll be oblivious to the real world around you, and it won't look or sound quite as amazing as you remember. You'll go back to your spiffy new Rift, and in that moment, you'll realize just how far we've come in 5 short years, and that you were part of making that happen. And then, of course, you'll start wondering why it's not as good as the holodeck yet. So let's look into the future. The technologies I'll discuss fall into several main areas: optics and displays, graphics, eye tracking, audio, interaction, ergonomics.